Are you going down the path you're going down because you just genuinely love it, or you have a goal? Like, for example, some people, or this is usually the stripper's fallacy, as I call it. A girl who says she doesn't enjoy, objectifying herself or showing her body. She's like, hey, I'm only in the strip club to make $100,000. I'm going to use that money to blah, blah, blah. Then I'm getting out of there. Right. And usually people are goal oriented unless like they're just like, hey, this is just what I love to do. With you, like, even as I heard you talk about like briefly and kind of vaguely, I understand why, because you don't want niggas pocket watch you no more. You were talking about the amount of money you made on or amount of money Lena made with that particular scene. I've been waiting for you to be like, listen, you know what? We've made enough. And with you, there's zero idea of a goal. It feels like I'm gonna call it degeneracy. Obviously, you wouldn't. It feels like this is what you love to do. It's not that you're doing like, hey, we're just trying to hit this lick and move on. It's like, hey, this is our lifestyle. This is what we were kind of like either hinting at or kind of headed towards. And me and Lena, we just love it here.
Okay, so imagine 2 different days for me. Sometimes I'll have a day where I got to film 2 interviews back to back. And, quite often these are interviews I'm like extremely excited to do, where it's people that I respect and I'm just dying to have a fucking conversation with. And there's all these questions. I'm sure you feel the same way when you do a piece of content with somebody, when you go in to interview Vlad, which I didn't actually get a chance to watch that one yet, but I watched like the first half of the Vic Mensa one today, which I guess actually if I were you, I probably wouldn't have been that excited for that one. But either way, like you're going in to have a conversation with somebody, you're super excited. Like in that moment, if I would do that shit for free. And yes, I'm going to make, however much money off it, but I would totally do that shit for free. Now, at the same time, when I go in to do porn, it's a different type of excitement where it's like the same way that you probably feel when you're like driving not that you would do such a thing, but if you were driving to some chick's house at midnight to go have a wild ass threesome or whatever, it's like you're all geeked up. You're just like excited, like, oh my God, this is gonna be fucking tight. My boner's going in and out and yeah. And that's like exciting, but in a very different way. But would I hang it up intentionally? Hell no, because it's like I love doing the porn shit. Like as much as it's like, yeah, it would be more fun to do it off camera, but also that would be a very weird use of a Monday for me to like fuck 2 random girls in the middle of the day. Like doing it for money is just like, I don't know. It's like, it's the most natural thing in the world at this point. Like why the fuck would I want to like go hit the club and like, party and shit to fuck some girls, which, every guy that I know has a bunch of money. This is what they end up doing is they end up going to the club and they end up fucking hella, random girls and they spend money on them. They buy them shit, all this kind of stuff. For me, it's weird because I've cut myself off from that mentality of chasing pussy. I'm still fucking a bunch of random girls, but it's within this like very strict confines that also is very profitable. But honestly, like I'm not worried about like the post plug talk part of my life. Like if I hit 44 and it's just like, oh, all right, we're not going to do porn anymore. I mean, that sounds fine. Like, I don't think I'd be stressing like fucking a bunch of different chicks and shit.
I guess I ask you because, like, for example, I don't have kids, but like as time goes on, like even when I just got like some type of fame, and I was like, I realized the power in fame, and like you could DM a girl and she fucking sees that you're popular, and like she just acts abnormally. She's like, yo, I don't give a fuck if I'm like in Antarctica, I'm about to come fuck you, right?
You could DM a trans girl.
Well, that didn't happen, but so that whole phase, right, happens for a while, right? But eventually, like, how old are you now?
39, dude. I'm 40 in like a couple months.
So you're 40 now with a kid and a wife, and you're still like your Monday. The highlight of your Monday is like having these threesomes.
I mean, is it a highlight? I mean, the whole entirety of my existence feels like a fucking highlight because, all right, I was just thinking about, how it's like when you're in the middle of a moment or a movement, it's very, very hard for you to see where you're actually at. Like when I was in the middle of the SoundCloud rap wave, it's like I didn't really like perceive it as being that, and it didn't really have a name until it was kind of like over or almost over, and like even when I look back, like I didn't realize how much of a moment the AD T-Rail Lush whatever the fuck era of No Jumper was until it was kind of over, and then it was like, oh, okay, that was like a real period of my life. Like that's a fucking chapter right there. But But you know, I think I'm kind of lucky enough at this point because I'm old enough and I've like been through enough moments and been in enough moments that I can look at my life now and just be like, you know, I could really like hang it up right now and be totally fine. I was in Hawaii a couple weeks ago and I also was having a lot of those moments of like, damn, maybe you'd be happier if you just like chilled on the beach and like, you know, went to this fucking food truck and got a burger and just like kicked it on some like super chill shit. But then at the same time, it's like I still feel like I'm in the middle of a moment. I still feel like chasing these interviews and doing this content and doing this porn shit and inventing the porn live stream space that we've now pioneered on onlyplugtalk.com, etc. You know, it's like I'm still in the middle of this shit and it's still fun. And if it gets to the point where it's not fun, I could totally imagine myself taking a step back. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm having a great time in the middle of all of it. So I don't really see a reason why I'd want to fall back, even though it does kind of feel like an option. And if anything, I'm working my ass off like harder than I kind of ever worked in terms of the sheer amount of like shit that I just have booked on an average week.
So, are you trying to convince me that you enjoyed the moment of Jason Love penetrating your wife? Because I really look at it and say, Adam, you're too rich for this, man. And I know you're probably one of the, honestly, the humblest. Like, you know, I feel like I have a great like gauge of where everybody is like financially, and you never lead with money, and I always know that. But you got it, and I've been telling everybody, I'm like, I don't care what dollar amount they say he was about to earn. I know he's making that, maybe in a longer period of time. He's making that from what he's doing, that he doesn't have to do that. So how do you process that? For me, I feel like, and this is my own theory, Lena was giving you some pressure because, like, yo, hey, listen, again, most of these female, like, porn stars or OnlyFans women, they kind of identify like they're feminists. So, like, she's probably hitting you with, like, all her fans are probably saying, hey, what about fairness? You let him fuck other bitches, he gotta let you fuck other women. And I think it probably got to you. And eventually, like, I don't know if y'all made a deal. I think y'all are really into more of a business than a marriage. Y'all probably made some type of deal. And you had to, like, you signed off on her taking a dick.
No. So, okay. The basic gist of that. Oh shit, he's still talking. What
the poker face you exhibited during the whole thing was fucking phenomenal. You even brought out a new character. I think you kind of went into a different arc. But there's zero way that when you went to sleep, you know, like, again, I know it was very cheesy when I asked about love earlier, but like, love is associated with like that fucking feeling in your stomach that you can't even understand why it's happening. But that's just really what it is. When that nigga fucked your wife, bro, there's no way you tell me you slept like a baby that night. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. I will never believe it.
I will say I always sleep very, very well, no matter what I'm going through. My sleep is one thing I always prioritize. But that being said, I think, you know, you said I kept a good poker face, and I felt like I kept a good poker face for a lot of it. But this is the thing, is like, all right, she did that on a Sunday, and I knew it was going to happen for like a couple weeks or like a month because we've been talking about it, and I made the decision to do it from a business standpoint, which was basically like, I believe that if you're going to go truly viral, there always has to be like a sacrifice of some sort. Like, for instance, I went extremely viral for having a guy run up in my fucking spot and point a gun in my face. You know, that was like the most viral thing that had happened to me up to that point. And at least part of it was the fact that I fucking had my safety put in question. You know, it wasn't like an intentional sacrifice on my part. And yes, it did make me look like vulnerable and like I was in a position where I could get fucked up. But it's kind of like part of going viral that somebody has to take an L. And I basically kind of like decided that in order to pull that storyline off, I had to be willing to take an L, at least in the public eye, to a certain extent. And I basically was just like, you know what? You can handle this. Be a tough guy. It's going to be worth it. That was my mentality going into it. Then she goes and does it. And I was a little bit surprised by the fact that it's interesting that you use the stomach metaphor there, or actually it's not a metaphor. We're like actually talking about how you feel in the pit of your stomach. But just knowing that it happened, it left me with like a queasiness that I was not expecting. So that was kind of surprising to me. But I had to go in and do a podcast the next day. That was Sunday that she did it. I go in and do the podcast Monday. Now, me and her talked for maybe an hour and a half before we went to bed after she did that scene, right? But so I go in and I'm talking to Destiny and Crit Mac on camera, and you can imagine, like, obviously the fact that I'm talking about it with Crip Mac is like the weirdest thing ever. Like Destiny is a pretty good shoulder to not cry, but to, you know, lean on in that moment. But Crip Mac is about the weirdest possible person you could confide in. But I decided to treat it kind of like I treat almost all of my content, which is that I try to, like, when we're doing podcasts like this, I'm trying to just be honest. I'm trying not to like have anything that I'm hiding, or, you know, I try to just be like really upfront as much as possible. And I find that it's hard for me to be on camera when I'm not being honest. Like, it's kind of hard for me to like even get in the mood to get on camera when I know that there's big shit that I'm gonna have to be covering up. So as soon as I got on camera, I basically just started talking about it, and I told Crip Mac and Destiny. And I was a little bit too honest. I didn't have enough of a poker face where, like, I wish that I had been able to like 100% completely play the character of the guy who was 100% on board, because I feel mostly on board. Like, this is not something that I'm stressed about.